my name is Pablo Requena, and in this video I'm gonna be fitting the inlay at the bottom of the guitar where the two sides meet. So there's a couple of ways that you could be doing this, and one of them is by having a butt join, in which case you would want to fit the inlay first before you cut the channels for your bindings and purflings, because then that way you get a very clear cut into this joint so that everything is really tidy in here. So this would end up looking like so. So you can see here, this is a very nice way of finishing it. Many makers do it, and it's a very acceptable way of doing it. However, we're going to look at how to do mitres. So basically, instead of having a butt joint like this, we're going to get the end strip to go a little bit farther so that the rosewood meets the rosewood, and then all these inlay lines are going to be angled at this joint so that they all frame really nicely. So also here you have two ways of doing this joint, and I think I'm going to do a very basic sort of sketch here so that you can see. And this strip is 8mm wide. I normally do it 6, but in this guitar in particular, because of the inlay at the end, at the back here is about 8mm, so I wanted to do the same. Normally I use 6, and then what it means is that you can do this joint in a very simple way, because all you need to do is to have one point in which this is 90 degrees, and then you inlays for the front come out this way, so you have these lines like so. And the thing is that when you do just one point, because this is 6mm, this point is not long enough to go through here and give you any problems. So you could do it this way and it's very simple. However, this one, it's a little bit wider, so if I was going to do the same thing, so let's say that I've got my bindings here, and the bindings are very slightly narrower than the center strip, so if I want to do this, this will go past the bindings, and all of this will be not very neat. So the way that we're going to be doing this is by, I'm going to do another sketch. We're going to have one angle here, then we're going to have a flat, then we're going to have another angle which it's going to meet the bindings. Right, so let's do it. So I got this strip ready. It's only very slightly thicker than the depth of the slot that I've got here. So the first thing I want to do is to have a nice edge here to work with. So if I bring it into the area where it needs to go, I can see that it's reasonably flat, so it's a good starting point. And what I'm going to do now is to make one angle here and another angle there. I want them to be 45 because that's where I will get the total 90 that I need. So I'm going to start on doing that. Yeah, that looks good. And now I'm going to do the other side. A little trick here is that when you're working with the chisel, it might not show in the camera, but you can see the reflection of the lines into the back of the chisel, and it's quite easy to see if the angle between the reflection and the real thing here is 90 degrees. Sometimes it's not so easy to kind of visualize 45, but 90 is a little bit easier to identify. So if you have the wrong angle here, then you can rectify quite easily, and then once you're happy that you got 90 degrees there, you can just go for it and cut it. and I'm going to have a look. Yes, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to see if I bring this so that the rosewood meets the rosewood here, I can see that all these lines will line up very nicely. So I'm happy that the angles that I've got here, even though they might not be 100% perfectly 45 degrees, they are pretty good and they will give me the result that I want. So I'm going to put a mark there and a mark here, and now I'm going to go and cut the one in the guitar. So of course here you have, this is about 220 millimeters long, so you got a lot, and so you got lots of chances to rectify this if you have to. But here there's not very many opportunities, so we have to do it right from the very first minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of masking tape, which is going to cover only the white lines, so basically the bindings and the periflames, and I'm going to fold it away. Then I'm going to get a scalpel with a good blade, and I think this one is, yeah, this is quite good. So I'm going to present the strip back again to where it needs to be, and if I push in here I can see that it's in the right angle here, because if I don't push it, it could sort of go slightly in an angle and it won't work. So I just press in a little bit so that I know it's exactly where it needs to go, and then like I did before, I want this end to be just lining up with the edge of the rosewood, and I can see very clearly through the tape. So now that I have it in place, I'm going to get the scalpel and I'm going to cut the tape. Also, as I cut the tape, it will be cutting a very subtle score line for the chisel to find later on, so that I can cut really quite accurately here. So now I'm going to remove the tape from the area that I need to cut. There it is. So let's go for it. I've got a 3mm chisel, and I reckon that 3mm is more or less the same as the length of the angle that I've got here. So I'm happy that this will do the cutting that I need to do here. So instead of going for it and cutting the whole thing in one go, so instead of just going and cut straight on the cutting line, I'm going to approach it a little bit at a time, so that nothing breaks up and then I end up having a mess. So because we have a join here, I'm going to start at that point a little bit at a time, and I'm going to be nibbling away until I get to the final cutting point. Also, I want to be quite careful not to go over into the rosewood. Okay, and now I'm able to cut a little bit here, so a little bit more. And a little bit more in this side. Right, so now I'm going to go and cut the final thing. There you are. And then the one in here, which cannot see so well. There it is. There you are. And then I'm going to clear this up a bit up here. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to remove the tape and see if what I've done is any good. And I can see that I actually need to do a little bit more work, because you might be able to see that I still got a little bit of white in next to the rosewood, and that will be a problem because it will show a little bit of white in between the two rosewood lines. So I'm going to clean this up. Very careful not to cut into the rosewood. Still a little bit more. I reckon I could maybe scrape it a little bit. Yeah, that's it. Right. And now okay. Well, I'm very happy with that. I think it's worked out really well, and what I'm looking for is for these points to meet, and I think they meet really well, so I'm happy with that. What I'm not so happy is that the depth of the work that I've done here is not all the way down to the main slot, so it's not sliding in so easily. So I'm gonna sort that out, which is very simple. All I need to do is to just go and cut a little deeper without removing any more of the angle that I've already got there. There you are. That's it. And now it goes really flush and really well. The only thing is that, in a way, this is the easier end to do. Now we have to do this one. And so to do that one, I'm going to turn the guitar around because I work better than having to do it this way. So all I need to do is to get these clamps. Then this one here. Okay, so this is back now to be right. So what I'm going to do now is that, because I know that this end of the strip works really well here, if I'm able to get a really good joint here, it means that I could use this very same end to mark the other side. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a little bit of tape and do exactly the same thing. So again, I'm putting the tape right on the edge just to cover the bindings and the purflings there. And like before, I'm pressing in the middle a little bit so that it really lines up as it should, and then I'm gonna cut the tape. There you go. And now I'm gonna remove the tape. And I'm gonna cut it in the same way that I did the other one, starting in the middle where the joint is, and that way I won't have any problems. And you can see I'm just kind of nibbling away to get near to the final place. Now I'm gonna clean some of the center. Right, so now I'm going to go for the final cut. Which is there. And there. Now I'm going to remove the tape and see what I find underneath it. So like before, I still have a little bit of white stuck to the rosewood here, so I'm going to remove that by scraping it with the chisel. This is always really chiseled, very fiddly, so you have to make sure that you got good lighting and that you can really see what you're doing here. Now the moment of truth, and it's pretty good as well, but the same problem as before, it needs to go in a little bit deeper, so I'm just gonna do that here. Right, so another nice joint, but what we need to do now is, keeping this end in here, we need to cut this a little bit longer than it needs to be. So I'm just going to mark it about, so the final cut, or the length is really there, but I'm going to cut it about here because I want to have a few practice cuts before I actually do the real cut in there. So I'm just going to use my square to guide the saw so that I cut at 90 degrees here. Let's go a spare one, so if it goes really wrong I can try again. So this will go in here, so I'm going to cut the angles now, and I'm just going to sort of do what I think is right, but because it's longer than it needs to be, I can do some adjustments if I have to. So again, the technique that I'm using here is that I keep the chisel 90 degrees to the bench from the very first moment. I hold the strip with my fingers, and then I have the thumb available so that I can use it to rest the chisel into it, so that way I can cut very accurately and a little bit at a time. If I were to cut the whole thing in one go, often what it does is to chip off and break the veneer that you're cutting. So it's really worth to go a little bit at a time so that you don't have anything breaking. And then when you look at it, you want to see that these lines run perpendicular as well. If you have the lines running in an angle, then you know that you have too much angle on your chisel either way. And that's not really going to work here, because what I've seen sometimes, especially amongst the students that I have, is that often they think that having a little angle is going to give you a really good contact on the top. And that is actually true. But what will happen is that as you clean it off to level things up, it will start appearing a little gap, which is only going to get bigger, and it's because the lower part of the angle is going away from the one in here, and therefore it becomes a little gap. So don't be tempted to get too much of an angle there to make your angle easier to do, because later on it can give you problems. So I'm going to cut the other one now. Okay, so that looks good. And now I'm going to bring it into here, and it also looks like it will work. The only problem is that it is too long. So what I'm going to do is to carry on cutting and keep checking until it's the right length and it will fit in. But what I will be doing is to cut it just a little bit longer than it needs to be, because if I make it a bit longer, then, well, I'll do it and then I'll show you in a minute so that you can actually see what I mean. So all I'm going to do is to start cutting away, and I've got about 3 millimeters to remove. So I'm just going to cut a little bit and then keep presenting it to see how it goes. Okay, that looks good as well. Let's see how it looks when I bring it here. And this fit is not as good as it was. Also, it helps if, can you see how this is quite a bit higher than the sides? So it helps if we remove a little bit of the thickness here. Without cutting the guitar, of course, but just leaving it very slightly proud, and that will allow me to see what I actually have here for real, because now that it's a bit closer I can see that this joint is not as good and that one could be a bit better, but because it's still very long I can rectify that. So what I need to do is to modify this angle here so that it's not open at the top, and then by the time I've done that, the whole thing probably will come in. So let's go and do that. And now let's bring it in. So if I lift it up, it closes up quite nicely. So what that means is that I've got some angle in here. Right, so let me just... Yeah, that's pretty good. And still a little long. I reckon this is still, if we look at this line, if we look at this point and this line here, I can see that that's easily 1 millimeter. So that's what I need to do to cut a little bit more. I've got too much here, and if I bring it there, it does show, so I need to remove a little bit of the rosewood to close everything up. As you can see, this is not a job you want to be doing in a rush. You have to give it the time that it needs. Okay, that's very nice. Right, so it's still a little long, and I'm going to explain now what I was trying to say earlier on, but basically I'm not going to cut it so that it just fits there. I want to cut it a little bit longer, so what I'm going to do is to put this ruler there, and then if I put this end in here, and if I am able to fit this end as well, which I'm still not, so basically when I'm able to fit both ends just with this ruler in there, that will be the right length that I'm looking for, because what I will do is that when I glue it, I will be putting the glue in the right place there in the slot, and then I will be putting this in with the ruler underneath, and I will be pushing both ends, and then I will pull the ruler in the middle, and what I will do is to push in the middle, and it will force these two mitres into place, and it will really close those angles there, rather than just let it drop, and then if there are any small gaps, they're never going to close. So that's what we're going to do. So let me just cut a little bit more, because this is still a little long. I can see, because when I have the ruler in the middle and I push here, it doesn't quite go in, but I can see that we're getting there, so I really want to cut a very small amount. Okay, so now I'm going to see what it looks like. Yeah, still good. Then I'm going to put the ruler in place. I'm going to bring that in, and then this one. Right, let's do it the other way. I'm going to put that one in there, and then this one. Yes, and it goes in. They both go in. So that's the right length for me. So let's glue it, and then you can actually see the whole thing. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue at both ends. And then I'm going to put some glue along this edge and along this edge. And then I'm not going to put any more in the middle, because everything is going to spread down and it will push into place. Right, so I get my ruler there, and then remember I did a mark here, but that's important because I want to make sure that I don't put it the other way around, because it might not fit. So this end in place, and you can see all that it's squeezing out, and then I'm going to bring in this end. Oh, it's a little tight, but it went in. And then pushing down on those two, I'm just gonna give it a quick pull. That's it. And then all I'm going to do is to push in the middle, and the glue will start coming out. Of course, it's got to go somewhere. So let's clean this up, and my bench as well. So I really want to push down. Let me see if I can find something like this. So you can see that the glue is coming down this end more than anywhere else. So it's a good sign, because it means that the strip is going all the way down. And we don't need to clamp this in, because this is just not going to go anywhere. So I just want to give this a quick clean to remove as much glue as possible. I know it's gone all the way down, and this is flush this end and flush that end, so the strip is a little proud in the middle, but it's because it was thicker. But I don't know if it will show well in the video, but basically all these 4 mitres, they look really nice, and there's no gaps and everything is closed. So at the moment all I need to do is to just leave it until the glue sets, and then I can level everything up and I will have 4 really nice mitres there. So I hope you find this job helpful, this video helpful. This job, it's quite advanced for people that want to make guitars, but it's really worth to do, because it's a really fine detail, and it's not many places where you can really show off your skills when you're making a guitar. So if you have any questions, please let me know and I will try to answer them, and until the next video.